All right, happy Friday. So interesting stuff in the Ocala real estate market. We're going to be talking about recession. We're going to be talking about housing starts. We're going to be talking about interest rates. So very interesting stuff over the last 4 months. We've seen a uptick in inventory, and we're going to jump right into it. We're going to show you exactly what we're looking at here. So let's look at MLS straight to the horse's mouth. Let's go 1585. That's how many homes are in Marion County right now. A steady increase over the last 4 months. Certain areas, it's interesting. I just did a video and some information on Marion County, but also actually on the villages. And the villages inventory actually has leveled off this week. Pretty much the same inventory we're seeing here in Marion County, still climbing up, as we're normally in that 3,000 inventory mark. As interest rates have settled down and actually kind of calmed down a little bit, and we're seeing a little bit of a flattening out as far as inventory goes in the villages. In Marion County, still climbing a little bit more, and that's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here. But 1585 is our current number. I've seen a few bargains out there, and I think there's a real opportunity for buyers to jump in the marketplace and actually really look at some properties and maybe make an offer on it, because they're seeing less competition. I think there are still some multiple offer situations, but mostly not. Like, we've doubled in inventory from 3 to 4 months ago, pretty much going from like the lower 800s, and now we're almost at 50, we're almost at 1600s. We're almost doubled in the last 4 months. Now keep in mind, 800 is like record ridiculously low number, and we were probably about 25% of where we needed to be, and now we're still only 50%. So it looks like, wow, there's a big number, but it is a big increase in a short period of time. And when that happens, that's a little bit of a shock to the system. I think people tend to freak out a little bit, and I think that's par for the course for sure. So something I do want to show you, we're going to be looking at mortgage rate recession type of numbers. So let's look at that first. So let's look at this. All right. So mortgage rates and recession. This tells you what the history of mortgage rates being at record highs. Obviously, this is actually late 70s, early 80s. Obviously, the yellow highlight is when the recessions actually hit. You're looking at 11 to 9% in the late 80s, early 90s, 91, 92. Then, of course, right after 9/11, 7.5 to 6.8%. And then obviously in the real estate recessionary period, 2008-9, which actually I've been selling since 2000, so I remember these periods distinctly. And then, of course, COVID hits. You're looking at 2020, and the interest rates being right around that 4 mark. And if you look at 18, what's interesting is now, 2018, we're right around that, close to the 5 mark. The interest rates we're seeing right now are actually the highest they've been since 2008, right, when the interest rates were up in that ballpark here. So when you see this, look at this interest rate. You see this little wall right here. This is where the interest rates have gone. So when you have that kind of wall, like that kind of steep increase, like straight up, inventory is going to go straight up, and demand is going to go straight down. The only difference is, and there's a reason why the demand has not gone all the way down like this, and I'm going to show you why. We're gonna look at that. So let's look at that. Hold on a second. Let me pull up. At the end of the day, this is how you know this is not recorded or edited when you're seeing something like this. So let's go to that first. Okay. So single family housing. So look at starts around the country. This is a nationwide number, and you're looking at housing starts going straight through the roof. Everything's pretty much average. No big, some time periods in the mid 70s. Of course, that's when the boomers were coming of age, And now, obviously, after 2000, lots of construction. Of course, then we saw the big real estate crash. And look at this. This is a big decline in housing starts, 14 straight years below the 50-year average. That's a big deal. Like, that's a really big deal. And that's the reason why you're hearing, there's a shortage of homes around the country, because we didn't build enough homes. Okay. That's a real thing there. So that's one thing to look at. Okay. So that's part of the reason why we're short in housing. But now let's look at the population. So now we're looking at, the population numbers, and the population numbers show, look, the millennials are at a number right now that is actually greater than the boomers. So these are the peak buying years of these people. Generation Z is actually coming into that time period too. I mean, these are people, 1997 or 22 to 25 range are starting to come into this buying cycle. But the big ones right here, the millennials that are, late 20s, early 30s, they're starting families. So you combine that, big demand, short in housing around the country, and then you've got a housing shortage, which obviously we know that causes the prices to go up. So that's part of the reason why we're seeing, or why we've seen what we've seen over the last couple of years. But the big news is inventory is still climbing up, right? The interest rates have leveled off, have come down a little bit. So that's I think good news. I think we're seeing a leveling off in the marketplace, a little bit more of a balanced marketplace between buyers and sellers. I think that what that's going to mean is that there's an opportunity for buyers to actually buy something, right? So without 25 offers on the table, less competition, I think that's a really good time for buyers to jump in. From the seller standpoint, I think it's also a good time to sell, and because you're going to see more competition in the future, perhaps. And it's not as good of a time to sell as what it was maybe 3-4 months ago. But once again, none of it matters, because it's the reality is if you don't have to sell, then don't sell. If you don't have to buy, then don't buy. Buying makes a lot of sense, because that's one of the ways that you can actually build some real wealth in your life. But if you don't have to, then don't. I'm also noticing, because I've had this conversation with a lot of people recently, that rents have gone through the roof. Like, not only housing prices, but rents. So it's not terribly less expensive to rent. And if you're going to put some money into something, well, put it into a mortgage. But make sure that you're able to do it, that you've got 6 months supply of savings. If the AC breaks down or you have some major problem, that you can actually afford it, and you're not going to lose your home as a result. If you can't afford it, then don't, right? I think that's really, really important. But if you guys have questions about the marketplace, you can connect with me, 352-572-3796. buymidflhomes.com is our website. But in a nutshell, a little bit more homes on the market. We're watching this closely here on the Ocala Real Estate Channel. And, recession basically seems to be, people are talking about recession. It's not the end of the world. It's actually an adjustment in the marketplace. It just means that there's, negative growth in the economy. And it's part of the capitalistic society. Like, it's part of our economy, like booms, busts, and a healthy decline in a lot of things is probably good for the long-term health of the economy, and including housing around the country and housing locally here, Marion County, and in the Ocala area. So if you have questions, please connect, and I hope everybody has a great weekend. Take care.